Shut up and sit down.
Hey everybody, Adam and John back with another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. Today on the line we have Tom Spisz from Vanguard Optics. How you doing today, Tom?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. We're finally getting, you're in Michigan too, so we're finally getting a little bit of the summer weather for the first time.
I don't know if it hit the 80s or what today, but we were outside earlier and I said, starting to sweat a little bit. Not used to it.
Yeah, John's here in a tank top and shorts, and a week ago it was raining. As soon as we got back from the Total Archery Challenge, it just rained nonstop pretty much.
Yeah, the rain's been nuts.
So yeah, today I wanted to talk about a little bit about optics. So one of those things where John's using the $100
Bear Grylls from Walmart,
and I've got a set of Vortex, and it's one of those things.
Well, that's
where,
a problem.
Well, how long have I been talking to you?
I know.
And I 100% want to get into that because I really feel like, I've done a little bit of reading.
It's a good topic.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of reading and kind of understand kind of how the optics community works. But for, our listeners going to be, so for John and I, right? Whitetail hunters, we're not behind our optics all the time. It's just a tool from here to there. And then, in the rifle world, right, they say that you should spend 2 to 3 times what you spend on the rifle on the optic. And for your average guy that goes to, let's use John's example of Walmart, and you buy yourself a package rifle that comes with a scope, well, hell, that's good enough, right?
Well, I bought mine on a hunting trip. My old Bushnells,
right.
took a crap. But granted, we're whitetail hunters, so we're just, looking at 100 yards, 200 yards, if that. And, for archery. And so I went to Walmart last minute, and all I had were these, Bushnell Bear Grylls edition. And I was like, well, I guess I'll get those. My bino harness is more expensive than my actual binos.
So that's kind of the topic that I wanted to kind of dive into and get some information both for us, but for the listener, because I think a lot of it is marketing and things like that. But before we get into that,
100%.
Let's get a little bit of background on you and kind of what makes you qualified to talk about optics and archery.
Yeah, I know we've known each other for a little bit. Let's see. So as you guys, grown up as a hunter, archer, I remember when I was back there at my parents' house, and I don't know, it used to be called a little red bow, I think it was, little recurve bow, and be in the backyard practicing. I still remember it was like 4 or 5, like first bullseye, ecstatic. And that's where it kind of started. My dad was a hunter, uncles were hunters, and, got into it. I've done both rifle and bow. Being in Michigan, you got to go above the rifle line. So as soon as your primo spot disappears, it's kind of like rifles either go to state land or, try to get some more connection. So, but being in, the passion for archery and down this way underneath the shotgun zone, I just practiced and quickly became acclimated to, take a comfortable 40, 50-yard shots if need be. Over the years, and like my father, he still says, if you stick to it, you're going to do something with it. And that's what led, had that mindset. And that's what led me to, I think it was actually that 2015, I established Shoot for Life, which was it's an archery nonprofit, which we could chat more about that a little bit later. But archery focused, for good cause, and just kind of got in the industry and, stayed with that. Your company start looking at, when you use stuff like that for the community, and you become known, people are looking up to you. They start to see how you become a valuable asset for a marketing point. So when you see ambassadors or, that name changes based on a company, but back in I think it was 2015. Yeah, about 2015. I signed a contract with Bowtech, and I had shot their bow probably for 2 or 3 years before that. And that was my first footstep in the industry. And that was before, like, I'm sure you guys seen like the big boom of all these other companies coming in with different variations of field staff, pro staff, what they classify it. But it was right before that. And that started it. And, a couple of the companies in between there and there that I've supported and created a relationship with, and some long lasting ones. And then because of, it was really Bowtech and Spy Point. I'd go down to Cabela's and do the Fall Classic, and you just really enjoyed engaging with people. It wasn't so much of if they ended up walking out of there with a other brand bow or different trail camera. It was just engaging, talking hunting, and letting them know, hey, there's something else out there outside of reading the directions or backer card. I said, I want to get a job within the industry, and that's the hardest part, really, is just getting into the industry. If you want that job, it's once you get in, that's the biggest hill. It's a steep hill. It's just right place, right time. And Vanguard had to be looking about 2 years ago, and they were in the right backyard of me. And I applied, and I was able to get in. So it took some time, but you built, you're building your own resume, your own portfolio, to make yourself credible, because in the outdoor industry, we're all, myself, you, we look to companies who have value, and that value starts within. So these outdoor companies that stand and really strive and last a long time, they value their workers within. So it's definitely hard to get there. It's just you got to build that portfolio up, and that's how I've gotten where I am today.
Awesome. And so what do you do? What's your position now with in Vanguard? And I guess what did you learn along the way? Because like I say, for us in the optics world, it's like you either pick up a magazine or social media, and everybody shoots. Everybody has to have a Vortex optic, or you go to Walmart or your big box store and get whatever's on the shelf.
Yeah.
And so those are, I'd say for the layman, there's Leupold, and then you've got the prices that are in the stratosphere of like Zeiss and Swarovski, and the things that, you see on like the Safari Club International. So it's a $20,000 hunt. So you got to at least have a $10,000 set of binoculars or a spotting scope.
So my position now is a regional sales manager of the West Coast of the United States, and a little bit of on the sales side, dabbling internationally into Canada, but I also still hold a marketing role. We call it like marketing specialist, where I help the senior marketer. Based on my experience, what I just kind of went through, and we work on connections, networking. On that side of things, I pioneered the Archery Pro program based on my past experience, like we just talked about with Bowtech, 5 Point. You look at the good and the bad. So it makes it fun. That's not what I started out with. I was just an inside sales guy when I first got in. And we just worked our way up and just like how we prove ourselves. You're trying to grow the podcast, your brand. You work hard and you get where you need to go. And that's what I've gotten to be able to hold that joint role, because when you have such a mixed age group, you're able to bring in a new perspective of where you need to go. And you brought up, someone on a marketing, they can go see a Vortex or a Leupold. It's because for years there was, I've never worked for those companies, so I don't know the entire details, but they, like Vortex, anyone would tell you they still do one heck of a job on marketing. They created a brand. where people will go buy a shirt because it says, it's got the logo on it, Vortex. And the same thing, and it's not to say that Vanguard never did a good job. It just was in the previous years, there was a different business platform. All the way 2 years back, they did OEM stuff for like Winchester spotting scopes, rifle scopes, the gun cases. When those were all out, those were being done and produced by Vanguard. So they did a lot more OEM. And then back around, I think it was the 2000s, they got into the glass direct. But when you look at the tripods, they were on the photo video side for years. So you see more advancement in the tripod sector. And a lot more folks go into that. So that's where you see the difference on just the name, really. On talking quality-wise, Vanguard's optics are compared to Leopold, because the one thing that we can do that a lot of other competitors cannot, unless you're, Leopold Zeiss, Swarovski, is we're able to measure light transmission rate. And that is because we have a Vanguard factory. It's our own factory. We get the glass chips in raw, that everything's cut to spec right there. So, for example, like at the edge of our ED4s to the whole entire barrel, there's, you look at them 6-8 inches, depending on your optic, but it's all the elements in there. At the outermost edge, we have a 93.5 light transmission rate. On a Zeiss Victory HT, which has shot glass, a lot of people are familiar with that. Really good clear optics. They have a 95%, and that's a $3,000 optic. And those ED4s are $500. So, like Vanguard, since there's no subcontracting or outsourcing, they're able to keep a family-friendly price and a top-quality optic, where you're getting a $500 bino that specs out to $3,000. And that's what I like, because let's face it, we spend too much money on bows and stuff sometimes and gear, but we need it. And a lot of times guys get all that stuff and they get to the optics, which are the most pristine part, whether it's from Michigan tree stand to, getting the heart pumping because you think you might see a big buck, but it ends up being nothing. Or if you're out west on a spot and stock and you're trying to decide if I should chase it, if you spend all your money elsewhere and then you don't invest in good quality optics, you're going to be busting your butt for nothing.
Real quick, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I kind of know the backstory just because, like I said, I've done some reading and a little bit of research on optics and things like that. So you talk about that Vanguard has their own factory and they're able to, source their own things. I guess, how does the rest of the industry work, or what makes that different versus?
So a lot of, in modern days, before we would see some companies that would say assembled in America, or some other lingo to make it sound like it was done here in the U.S. But when people started digging deeper, they found out it wasn't. And you can find this isn't any kind of hidden information. You can find it on the internet, unless it's changed from now until this podcast. But like Vortex and Leopold, two names that they know, their glass is cut overseas in the China area. I believe it's China still. Based on a factory that they're using, and it's not their own factory. It's some, who knows what the name of it is, but they're just cutting the glass, and the housings are made elsewhere, and then they're shipped to the Philippines for assembly, and then from there they come into the U.S. for distribution to folks like you, me, and dealer. So now you've gotten 3-4 hands of exchange going on. So you have to cover everyone's labor costs, and that's where you see the price increase. So when you have a factory like Vanguard that's just from point A to point B, you're getting the quality of what you should be paying. You're overpaying for the name, really. And I've had Vortex too. And like I said, it can be good glass, but then if there's ever an issue, because they're not doing it themselves and they have a bad run, they might get some bad quality glass going out there, and they were able to stop it right away because you're outsourced until it gets too late. And that's the one downside. But, like you look at it like a Swarovski, it's crystal glass. They're doing it themselves. And I've had, and this is no joke, I was at Pope and Young this year in Nebraska, and those guys, I mean, if you've ever been there, they're hardcore hunters. They've been in it for years, old timers. We all look up to them. And they're coming by checking it out, and they're looking at the price. We did a deal for them, first time there. But even the regular cost, they weren't blocking an eye because they're like, we all own Swarovskis. They had the money to blow on it. But they said they could not justify keeping those based on the quality and clarity. Like, it was just too close to keep $5,000, $10,000 in your closet, or you could keep $1,000 between, optic and a spotter. It was just like a no-brainer to some of these guys. And that's what I think we fall for in a general mindset. We fall for the marketing aspect way too often as human beings.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to pick on any sort of company or anything like that. But like I say, it was just my understanding that a lot of this stuff is made in the same factories. Whether I'm not saying Leupold or Vortex, but I'm thinking like Nikon, Bushnell, any of those. It sounds like from all the reading that I've done, a lot of those are just made in the same factory and on the same line. Yeah. Today they might make this one, and then tomorrow's Nikon. And
if you look at cars, sometimes parts of cars are made elsewhere, and they're not just making that bumper; they're making it for other companies too. And I didn't know that prior to working with them, so it was interesting to find out. And really, it comes down, this is just because it's one thing I haven't dabbled into, and I really care to take the time to look and read the legality portion of it. But there's rules that a U.S.-owned company cannot own a factory over in the Asian continent to cut their own glass. It has to be outsourced. So that's why when you see, Nikon, Bushnell, Vortex, Leupold, those guys who are U.S.-owned companies, they don't own the factory. It's being outsourced. So then people are always like, well, how's Vanguard doing it? Well, so Vanguard was 33 years ago, was founded in Whitmore Lake, Michigan, by a lady she was born in Taiwan, came over to the U.S., did all the legal stuff, founded Vanguard in Whitmore. And because of that, her original nationality, she's able to own a factory on the Asian continent. So it's all Vanguard employees. We get, like I said, we get all that stuff in raw. So that's where you see how that was made possible. So what people always ask at shows, I want something that's the closest to, American made. And it's, unless there's something else that's up there, I don't know. Like I said, everything's changing. Is from what I've learned, is Vanguard's one of the closest to American made when it comes to optics and tripods, because everything's designed, packaging, prototyped in the U.S., and then our main factory where everything's cut and built is right over there. It's still owned, and it comes back. We're not outsourcing to any other kind of foreign country.
It's really interesting. I mean,
yeah.
You think about it, everybody wants that made in the USA thing, and there's kind of like no way around that. That's, people will pay more. Yeah. People will market the shit out of that, and like you said earlier, cell phones. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people,
it's interesting.
But a lot of people, will pay more. People market the shit out of it, and for good reason. But there's just some things like where there, like you said, like the cell phones. There isn't one that's made in the U.S. I don't even know there's one piece that's made in the U.S. I mean, it would be very surprising. John's an electronics guy. How much of that stuff is made around here?
None that I know.
So
I mean, that's what I like about it, and drew me to the company even more after I started was even on the, so ED, HD glass, it's the same glass. It's, sometimes they call it high def or extra low dispersion glass, what it really is. And it helps low light scenarios. And if you see those green lines on trees, it gets rid of that. It's chromatic aberration. That's what that's you're seeing. But even on our entry level, the Endeavor ED, those have a 91% at the edge. And if you go and look over at a comparison table, I don't have the model right in front of me, but it's a Leica, and it's $2,400, has a 91% at the edge, and that one's 24, and then the Endeavor ED is only $300.
So real quick, I feel like we like stepped through like some sort of time travel continuum.
I know
like that. You just started like talking like in all these different word like acronyms and things like that. So for like our listener, like what is it that you're kind of speaking to right there, like with the EDHD, and when they pick up a set of binoculars, whether it's at Walmart or Cabela's or wherever, what is it that they need to be looking for as a consumer, not as a guy that knows about glass?
Yeah, no. So I'm glad you picked up on that ask. So that goes back to the marketing side of things that you hear people say, oh, it has HD glass. You have to buy HD glass. And then someone will say, well, what's ED glass? Because so-and-so has it, or, Vanguard, whoever else is marketing it as ED glass. And then some of these store workers will say, I don't know, but you need HD glass. Because they're thinking, it's like 4K versus 1080p. And it's the same thing. Like HD glass is ED glass. So ED glass, it's extra low dispersion, and that's, it's helping your light control, your image clarity. And when I mentioned like the green lines, so if you look through binoculars that do not have it, and if you're looking, especially over like a white surface along a tree line, you might see a green line or a purple line like right along the edge, like if you were to do the picture. That's chromatic aberration, and it's just that light that's being distorted, and you're not getting a true clarity image. So when you have ED HD glass, as long as there's nothing wrong with the coatings or anything like that, it's going to eliminate that line that you're seeing. And not, so that's that's more of like I call it like a nuisance in seeing a line. What really was best for is dusk and dawn. The 2 prime hours, especially for whitetail, is, when it starts getting dark, when it starts getting light, you can look, or, I don't know how many times I've been out in the woods before I even had good optics, and it starts to get first light, and you think you see something, ends up being a bush. So you get all worked up for nothing. So when you're going into a store, it's best to look, get the HD ED glass. You're gonna feel better, you're gonna see clearer, and you're not gonna get all blood pressure pumping for a bush.
And when you're talking about the 91%, 93%, like what is that in relation to? I mean, obviously 95% is better, but why? Or how do you tell?
That's the amount of light. So we have product marketing managers that deal with all the development and giving us all the numbers, do all the testing in the labs. But so if you look through the whole entire binocular, if you looked out towards the edge of the binocular, that's the amount of light that's coming through. Because every time it passes through, it's going to eat up light. If some other companies in the past, which I haven't seen any lately, is they would market that their glass has 99% light transmission rate. That's false, and that's impossible to say that it did through the whole entire thing, because as you get closer to the black object, unless you had a 100% glass binocular, possibly. But you get towards the edge where it's dark and black, you start, light changing. So what that marketing scheme was, they're saying through the dead center of your binocular on the glass is the 99%. But they were also marketing that 99% was, so if you would take the binocular, cut it in half, and you grab that lens that's on the far side, the objective lens, and dead center, only through one glass element was 99%. So it's not even through the whole entire, all the elements of glass that binoculars have in it, the prisms, that's not including that. So that was like a false, it was just that marketing advertisement thing that was going out for a little bit. And that is a big factor on when you're looking at percentage. If you start dabbling with that quality game, dusk and dawn, how much later you're going to see. But at the same time, and this is actually a good one for, listeners, is, we'll go to trade shows, and so we have our twos, we'll just say the twos in the first gens. I'll have to do a little backup too. So we use, and the twos we use, it's called a Hoya Japanese glass that we cut, and then in the ones we use a Chinese ED glass. On the glass spectrum, if you're comparing, it goes Swarovski, which is crystal glass, then Zeiss, then Hoya, then the Chinese ED glass. You're talking about quality light transmission. So with that in mind, when folks, so technically the twos of ours are better than the first gens, but we'll be at trade shows and folks will say, I can't tell a difference. Or, the ones are better, but they're $100 cheaper. Why should I buy the twos? And we'll tell them, buy the ones. If they're better for your eyes, save yourself $100. We're not gaining anything special by it. We want you to be happy and get what's good for your eyes. Just in general, whether listeners come to Vanguard or, go somewhere else, just don't fall into that marketing scheme where just because it costs more, it's better for your eyes. Because it may not be, and you want a good experience. And that boils down to, why some of us wear glasses. It's a prism. The prisms within our eyes perceive glass differently. So the reason why someone sees that the Chinese ED glass, the first gen, is better for them is because the prisms are more adapted to that glass. When in all theory, and when you're looking at price and quality, the Hoya is better. But like I said, go with what's better for the user.
And so that's a pretty good transition in kind of the next thing I wanted to talk about, which was, the cost of optics. And, for this podcast, we'll say binoculars and maybe spotting scopes, and then value, quality, durability, and kind of like uses. So what, they make binoculars across every single spectrum from, the little tiny, what are they, like 8x20s or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And then all the way up to, the bird watching ones that wouldn't fit in this room. But for the average person, I think 8x42, 10x42 seems to be the standard.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, myself, I started as an 8x42. I still have some. But, when I was able to play with 8 and 10, I grew towards the 10. I mean, outside of target archery, even hunting, I grab my 10 powers. Everything's, the best way to put it is 100 feet looks like it's 10 feet from you. You lose, depending on the optic, you might lose 30 to, we'll say 70 feet of view. But, I don't, at least to me, this is like just a personal opinion, is that give or take to where I can start counting points quicker I'm willing to lose it because I'm not really, if I'm scanning that much of an area at 1,000 yards, I'm looking through the glass too much. And I need to find a new hunting spot. So that's what drew me towards the 10s is you just could, you're able to start deciding. I don't know if you guys have ever done it, but I mean, I've dropped out of tree stands before when I saw a buck, out that wasn't coming my way to try to see if I can stalk on him. And if I had my 8s with me, I don't know if I would have done it because I would have questioned if it was worth it.
Okay. And then like spotting scopes. I don't know anything about spotting scopes other than they all seem to be $1,000, and that kind of deters me from buying a spotting scope. But so why does someone, what is the benefit of spotting scopes over binoculars in the same price range? Obviously this is going to be for probably Western hunting. It doesn't apply. I mean, it may apply to Western whitetails, but it probably doesn't apply to whitetails much.
So, yeah, whitetail not, I guess once you have like a chalet hunting shack that's overseeing 1,000 acres, maybe not need a spotting scope, but for practicing, I'll use one because it's easier to just look down there instead of looking through binos and it's stationary. The same thing with the spotting scopes. You want good quality, that HD ED glass. Definitely for out west. You're limited. You get the one eye focus unless you go get like a phone scope adapter. But you're talking size. Like we have both HD and non-HD glass just for price points. Like ours, again, the top one, I don't have the price list in front of me, but I think it's $549. It was $449. And those both are spec'd out to over $2,000 spot scopes. The 82, the 80 to 85 range are heavy. We see a lot of guys who are the long range precision shooting, 1,500 yards, and they're using those because they want to play with the mirage because they watch for the wind change.
Okay.
I've gone back and forth. The 65 that we offer is plenty good. It's a 15 to 45. It gets the job done with what I need it to do. I don't need to get out to 60 magnification. But then again, if you got the smaller one, which is saving weight on your pack, if you get the phone scope, put your phone on there, and you zoom in with your phone, you can go beyond 45 all day long. It's whatever your phone will let you. So you can zoom in. So it's kind of like a little cheap way to save a few pennies. And that's why I end up growing up to.
And for budget guys, I feel like that's kind of like, that's why I like doing a podcast with John. And it's funny because I have more expensive binoculars than he does. And everything else he has is nicer than, and it's purpose built. It's for a reason.
And let's go back though. How did you acquire those binos?
Yeah, they came in the one of the subscription boxes.
Right.
So it wouldn't have been something that I would have purchased on my own. But it's just one of those funny things. Is like I feel like this is for the everyman and for the that's why I wanted to have you on here and talk about it because, like I said, granted John's experience was like time constrained, right? He needed binoculars today.
Oh yeah.
But spending $100 on those binoculars versus, some of the Vanguards I see are, in the $200, $250 range, is he'd be that much further ahead because he's, he could spend $150 on the same pair of binoculars. I'm
just going to say right now, last year I had a set of binos and we had a ton of other equipment to buy for our Western hunt. So now this year I have all my other equipment and we're going to go out antelope hunting. So I guess I'm going to be putting an order in for a set of Vanguards. So
yeah.
So after we get off the line here, or after we get off, we'll be figuring out.
Yeah, doing a little bit of talking. And that's what I was going to say is I want to go to Vanguard to support a Michigan company and, people that I've dealt with and talked with. And, realistically, it's going to be cool to be able to see, side by side comparison with what I've got versus the Vanguard glass. And, I've done that you guys had some up at the Total Archery Challenge, and, I had my binoculars there and looked through. You guys had some that were set up on the truck chute over there. And I looked through those. I don't know which. I don't remember.
Oh yeah. The BHA guys had their binos up over there.
Yep. And so I was looking through those, and it's hard unless you're side by side and exact same conditions, everything. Looking through them to see like what the difference is. One thing, kind of like to John's point, my brother, he's for the last bunch of years has been going out to South Dakota doing whitetail hunting. And after his first year out there, he had the $75, $80, $100 good enough for whitetail binoculars or, drive around looking at deer type thing. He said he could not believe the amount of eye fatigue that he had on a shitty pair of binoculars versus his buddies who had, they had one pair of Zeiss with them and then a bunch of other, we'll call them competitor binoculars, but in the $300 to $500 range. And he said he just couldn't believe the amount of eye fatigue through the binoculars that he was using. Can you explain a little bit of like why that happens or what's causing that and how to avoid it with equipment?
I mean, it's a circle of, how our eyes are. If you go to eye doctors, they're going to tell you this or that. If they're getting poor, better. But then also that HDED glass. I have an astigmatism in my right eye, and I can tell, we go through all our line, the glass quality, when you hit the ED stuff. I have more sense of relief when I get to like the fours, which is quick side note on the fours. Prisms are a whole other ballgame. That's another podcast, but we put a better prism in there than the industry standard, so it gave even more eye relief. But I can tell the difference. And now when I go, when we have a dealer, customer that's wants, we'll go above and beyond if they said they want to make sure that they're pristine, clear, which we never seen any issues, but we'll go in the back, check them out, give them our additional QC pass. And if I grab some that are not HD, I'm like, man, there's something wrong with these. I can feel instantly like my eyes are straining more, and I'll catch some of those lines that we were talking about. Well, that's just because my eyes have gotten so used to looking through the good glass, and so it's actually saying like his eyes are straining more with his than his buddies. It's crazy. That can make or break a hunt right there.
Not only that, like I noticed a couple years ago when I went out to Montana, we were out there on a motorcycle ride, but I brought my Bear Grylls with, and my buddy Eddie, who lives in Bozeman there, he has Swarovski. And so the one night he's like, we got back from the ride and he's like, you want to go see some elk? So I'm like, yeah, sure. So we go out and we're like right at the base of the Bridgers, and he busts out his spotting scope and his 10x42s, and I got my 10x42 Bear Grylls, and it's starting to get that low light, and I could see him at first. I could see look like ants coming down the mountain, and he's like, now try these, and it was like night and day. Like you're talking about the light loss, or the amount of light you could see through it. I couldn't see shit out of my Bushnells compared to the Swarovskis.
Yeah,
I mean, just
crazy.
The clarity and and the low light conditions. So if that's like a determining factor, if you could try them at a low light situation, you would definitely be able to tell a difference.
Yeah, Tom, you're going to be up at the Michigan. So Vanguard's working with Michigan BHA this year, I believe, and you're going to be up at
we'll be at the rendezvous.
Yeah. So are you going to have some equipment up there so people can test this stuff out at the low light times and all of that?
Yeah, we'll have all that out. Depending on the weather, we might do some fun little things with it, at nighttime. When you have the starlight out or just the moon, if we have a good night. Maybe it's like hide and go seek or something with some dots to win some stuff. We'll see. But they can test it out. And that's what like you said, that's what you have to do side by side. And it's funny you said that. Like, we're looking at some stuff to next year to where we could do almost like what they call the Pepsi Cup challenge. Something like that where people aren't going to know what they're looking through, but they can check it out and get a first-hand experience. And then you have the wow factor, or the prisms are better in their eyes for the other brand, and that's what they like, and that's what it is, which is okay.
Well, I think that's great because it's one of those where it's real easy for you to come on here and be, ours are the best and that's it. And a lot of this stuff comes down, just like bows, it comes down to preference. There's guys that will shoot a bow that I would say is inferior just because of, components, fit and finish, and I'm probably not even the guy to speak to that because everything I look at is like cost based on shootability. And so maybe that gives me, I guess, a bigger voice because the shootability part of it is more important to me with bows. And it all comes down to personal preference, whether it's dead in the hand, speed, whatever floats your boat. But with something that is actually like physiologically different in everybody with their eyes, to understand that it's going to be a different experience for everybody that picks up a set of binoculars or a spotting scope. I think that speaks to, kind of like the quality of people that they have over at Vanguard. Because like I say, it'd be easy for you to just say, oh, you have those. Well, you don't understand. And to say, well, ours are, much better than Swarovski or this or that. I mean, it would be easy for someone to come on here and just blow smoke and say, ours are better. But to say, hey, it's a really individual thing and everybody's eyes are going to be different. I think that's great.
Yeah. And you said it right. I didn't think about it before. It's basically, I'm able to tune, I can tune an optic from our optic line to your eyes, just as someone can tune a bow to your liking. And that's what it needs to come down to. And that's what, I hope it'd be great to see every brand out there do that, because you just need to get something that they're going to enjoy.
So up there at the BHA rendezvous, you're going to be speaking. Kind of what are you going to be offering for the people that are headed up there?
Yeah. So I mean, it'll be like a little relapse on some. We're going to bring up a pack. Kind of do what's in your pack. Every scenario is different on hunting. So, I'll probably touch base on what's the basic, what you should have, safety, first aid, down to some backup stuff, depending on what you're doing. If you're packing in versus if you're just going in a couple miles, coming back to your truck, two different, you can shed a lot of weight there. So we're going to chat on that, just overall of, optics and weight. So that's going to be a key point. And then we'll just roll into user experiences, like what I used from a ground blind to a turkey hunt to the bear hunt, what changed up, and just get people thinking.
So with that bear hunt, I don't think John isn't 100% going to be bear hunting because I don't think he applied for a tag.
Is it over?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So John will not be bear hunting in Michigan, but he didn't have any points. Anyways, Frank, myself, and a couple other guys, we should draw. for Michigan bear here. We've never hunted bear ever in our lives. You just got back from a Canadian bear hunt.
Yep.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. And it just happened to be that you went with you were in camp with all the Zeus Broadheads guys. And we had Nick on the podcast here a couple months ago or so. And we shot the Broadheads and took a look at them. And, truth be told, like when I gave him to John, he was like, what in the world is this thing? Like, this is, and basically through the podcast, Nick hit every single one of John's, trigger points on it where he was like, well, it looks like a plane. So I don't know how it's going to fly. It's kind of loud, all these things. And he was right on top of every single one of those things. So, so was that your first bear hunt? And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, first bear hunt, and you tell Nick his broadheads don't work. No, just kidding. First bear hunt, stars aligned. It was an opportunity. Wasn't expecting to happen. So, you're always grateful for that. The one crazy different thing is, so it's all guided, but they take you out there. They're in the same, it's because it's Canada, so it's Crown land. It's our state land, but they call it Crown land. They drop you off in the same unit, and then the guide sits in the neutral location because in case someone gets a bear early, they can go over there if it's a good hit, pack it up, or come get everybody and they'll find the bear. So originally going in, I thought the guy was going to be chilling with me the whole time. So you'd go out at 2:30 in the afternoon, so you're not hunting in the morning, and you go sit all day, and you get picked up at about 10:30 at night. So that was a different experience because, you're a different country. There's black bears all around me. There might be some wolves, depending on where the pack's at. And you're just chilling here by yourself with a flashlight. So you get picked back up. So it's definitely a connection to nature beyond what was expected. But, that was definitely different. It was, so, the first time I was playing with units because, we don't really have, we have units in Michigan. Maybe it's because we've just grown up here to where they don't really think about it. You say, state land, I'm going to go hunting, as long as my tag applies to it. And so I had a unit that was known for bigger bears, but less traffic. And I saw that right away because the first day there was a handful down, and the next day, day two, there's a handful down. I didn't see anything. And these guys are saying, oh, yeah, I saw some, or didn't have a shot. I'm going, man, what the heck? Like, I'm not seeing a bear. I wasn't seeing any of those either. But then finally, like day three, you get bored doing videos, and I was like, well, day three, here we go. And it was interesting. So the guide, you have the main guide, and then it was the guide's uncle that was taking us out. And old timer, all these guys up there, all they do is they rifle hunt. I didn't meet one of them that bow hunted. It's just they're very secluded, and when they need meat for food, they're going up there to get the job done. And so they were all stoked to see just people get bear with bow and arrows. But he was telling me, he goes, I swear, bears are drawn to noise, and because if you're talking in the blind, because they're curious, the black bears, they want to know what's going on. And I'm like, I don't know, man. You're the guide, first time hunt. And that day I shot by and, kind of joking. I said, well, come back to my way. I think I'm going to get one early. And I didn't get one early, but he started the truck up about 8 o'clock, and he was about 150 yards behind me. And at 8:30, here came in the black bear that I shot. I'm going, no way. Like maybe this guy was right, the noise kind of came out because when I haven't really put the video out yet, but he comes in and, they had a barrel out there. They dropped a couple little things of meat in there, but wasn't heavily, you hear some places where they're dumping granola bars and custard, all that good stuff that they like to smell. It wasn't like heavily baited. He came in right behind the barrel, but didn't even go to it. He just was like he was searching. Either he was searching for a sow or the noise got him to come out. And it was like a split second, look away, just let it rip, and that's use that Zeus, and I hit him right in the heart shot. We didn't, because we didn't gut him out. We just quartered him out, so we didn't really dig in too deep. But I think it might have been upper heart, because he went up probably about 35, 40 yards into the cedar swamp. And it was 8:30, so we let him lay the night just because safety-wise, you didn't want to go out there chasing a wounded bear. But yeah, he didn't go far at all, and cold as can be. It was, temperature's different up there, so it was a rush, and even to the blood pumping, you get buck fever or something. I didn't get that. I was talking to a few other guys, and they said, no, I didn't get that either. But in the video, after I shot it, it's split second, you hear a big old deep exhale. And I didn't even realize I was holding my breath. And it was just totally, I don't know, it's just because it's like you're facing a predator or what it was. But it was a totally different sensation. So, but once you get that, you're hooked too. Like, I was talking to a guy the other day. He goes, man, I would rather go hunt 10 black bear and not hunt whitetail in a whole year. And I was like, I couldn't agree more. Like, it was just a totally different hunt. I'm like, let's just go back and do some more.
Well, it's interesting because I was talking to John about this. We've said it on the podcast, no matter who we talk to, like whatever, it ends up being like, broadheads are either the best broadhead or they're the worst broadhead. It's never the shooter. It's never anything else. It's, you made a good shot and the broadhead did its job or like whatever. But you're kind of like unbiased because, what you told me for your interaction with Nick was, well, Nick, I can shoot a bear with one of my broadheads or one of your broadheads. So you had no dog in the fight, really, right?
Yeah, so I knew his broadhead was going to shoot good on him high, though. I got into the whole, super tuning your bow, paper tuning. So unless that broadhead was not put together correctly or there was a bend in it, it was going to shoot good. So it was the first day he got, they were tied up with getting stuff out. He came out 3 hours before he handed him, so I shot two, they shot right, put it. And that portion of that, you got the bleeder blades, and then you got the main ones with that, like a high enforced spring, I guess you could say. I haven't done too much in depth for the correct term that he's using, but the idea is it's really like a hybrid. It's not a mechanical, even though, they can move, but they're not going to collapse. You look at other mechanicals out there, they open up on contact or they close out after they go through. But I think that's what helped get this bear a little bit, because he, when I shot, first time I've seen an animal move as the arrow hit it. It's like I've heard stories where they hear the arrow coming at it, and the arrow, to me, I didn't hear any noise, but it could sense that something was going to hit it. And so when you slow the video down, you see it just as the arrow is probably, I would imagine it was 8 inches to a foot away. It started to duck a little bit, and it brought its shoulder back to try to shield, that core area. And that arrow just snuck in. And so I was freaking out at first because I found it, it broke off, and I'm like, no way, 'cause that was such a good shot. But that broadhead that Nick developed in that Zeus, with that spring, it allowed that blade on the one side to push back, to allow that straight flight path that I was going for. And then after it, sliced through that caught the shoulder, but went back, it was still kept going straight, but it allowed the blade to flex in And then once it passed that point, it was back open, full level horizontal with the other one. And it went through, and then it just got stuck in the opposite shoulder. And then when he stepped forward, that's when he broke my arrow. But yeah, I mean, it's hard, like Nick was saying. He goes, if it was with one of the other broadheads, he goes, I don't know if it would have happened. It's hard to say unless you could duplicate the shot. But all the other broadheads I had, they're not allowing a blade to flex like that. So it could have just got, game over and got stuck in the shoulder, because they have some beefy, bony shoulders that would make a bad day for anybody.
So how many bears were actually killed up there with the bow and with the bow?
There was 11 bears. 12 people, 11 bears shot.
Were they all shot with the Zeus broadhead, or just?
Yep.
Really?
Yep, all of them were shot with the Zeus.
Sounds good.
What happened? What happened to the 12th guy?
The 12th guy. He saw one, and I had to razzle a little bit, because you can't see it on camera unless it's you have some $10,000 camera. But he said he didn't have a good shot, and I said, "What were the size of those twigs?" He's gonna make it happen. And but he did. He said he didn't have a clear shot on it, and you just razzing each other in hunt camp. But he didn't get a shot off. So. And
John's raising his eyebrows and pointing his thumb at me. So I don't know if he's talking about the elk or the whitetail that we seen in Idaho, but he's
the whitetail. I would never razz you about the elk. That was a good call, but the whitetail, not so much. You could have killed that one all day. We killed that one up at Toll Archery Challenge. I don't know how many times last weekend or whatever it was.
Oh man! But like I say, that's awesome, because like for us here and for the listener that's been following along, and I got a lot of messages about the Zeus and like, are you going to shoot him? What do you think about him? And we told Nick, we said we'll shoot him. I don't have a problem, but
I got my scale right in front of me. I'll tell you what. I actually don't remember what my setup was for the overall weight, but this was the one thing when I was talking, because that was fun. I was there for a week with Nick and his group of guys that kind of dealt with it. And so it was welcoming, but.
And you weren't up there with Nick, right? So it wasn't like he brought you up there to try his broadheads and anything like that. It just sort of happened that way.
Yeah. Yeah, there was no contract, nothing forced to do it. I said, let me just try it. So like my arrow setup was 450 grains.
Okay.
And that's with a 125 tip. That's just what I grew to like, and it shocked the kinetic energy that I get out of it. But like Nick was telling me, and I just haven't had time to really dabble with it to experience it firsthand. But he designed those with the idea for the average hunter in mind, to where most guys are using 100 grain tips. And I've used them for years. But you deal with that issue of that kinetic energy momentum as it goes through. And I've had it happen. I've hit a deer to shoulder with 100 grain, and it went in 2 inches and fell out. And I was frustrated. That made me stop using a broadhead. And he designed with that spring and that blade he was telling me. He goes, that way, whether it's just by choice or your bow setup, your draw weight, that 100 grain is the best for you. You're still going to have the max potential possible with that broadhead. And when he first said that, I was like, okay, thinking, I'm going back to the marketing side of things. I'm like, I started to think about it more. I said, no, I said, he's right, because that you have that true path, and as soon as you penetrate that hide, all it is about pasture at that point. So if you have blades that will function and adjust, so that's perfect.
Yeah, and it's funny because we've got some here, and John's been playing with them here and there. And when we were on the phone with Nick, and when he was talking to him, he was playing with it, and he says, "Yeah, I shot this one into the target a bunch of times and back and forth, and they stay sharp because he stabbed himself with it like right when we were on the
Oh,
phone
yeah.
with him. So, I mean, like I said, I've got
Yeah.
that one in my hand right now. So,
It's definitely still.
No, they were impressive, and I mean, I've shot a variety of broadheads, and I still have, because you accumulate them over the years, and I like too is he with those broadheads is he can so quickly go from 100 grains to 125 by just switching out the tip. So
Right.
like mine, he pulled out the package, 100 grains, and he just had the extra 25 grain tips, swapped it out right there. We were ready to rock and roll. And when I got, we got that rut head out of the bear, and the only thing which if I go put it on a little grinder and make it pointy again, is the tip, probably a 16th of the tip got bent to the one side. But the blades are fine, the head's fine. Just, I'm going to go and grind that tip off, and I'll go use it again on a deer or turkey this fall.
So what's your bow setup right now? What are you shooting and your components and stuff?
So for my hunting bow, I switched to the Prime, the CT3 this year. Give it a whirl. And what drew me to that was how easy it could tune. I got big into the whole, like I mentioned, the super tuning game, and time is money, and I spent too much time before. But so let's try it out. So I went with that bow, and I've ran the Montana Black Gold sight for years. I switched probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I go with a 5-pin slider. And you can choose. So with the slider, you can make your 50 or 60 yard pin the adjustable one. So they all stay fixed, but when you're at the target site, you can put your yardage tape on there. And so if it's marked at 60, that means your bottom pin's a slider. But now if you moved it to 70, 80, and everything's offset. So that was one plus function. I like that one too, because third axis, a lot of folks don't or haven't dabbled with third axis. And really, if you're in Michigan or any other kind of whitetail state, you're hunting from a tree stand, you should probably look at it, because that's that angle shot, and that's going to put your placement out of not in the right area. You could be, depending on how whacked out it is, you could be 4 to 6 inches left or right at an angle shot. So I liked that portion. And then with the sight still, they turn purple. It has that housing to where it controls the light, and back to the light's key really. Did that one, and then I tried. I've done ham ski. I still have that on one of my bows for the rest, but I went with a vapor trail for the rest of the hunting bows. I'm trying the Gen 7 one out this year. That's pretty solid. But the two, I think, probably 3 consistent things is that that precision peep. It's like a post. It's almost like iron sight. So you just settle the pin on top of that when you draw. And then the tap stabs, that titanium alloy. That's a key factor. And I've noticed on quiet, a lot of these bows are, they get loud, or they're carbon based, or even louder. So that titanium is going to dampen the noise quicker than carbon's going to. And especially I switched to, last year I tried, they make a string stop. Same thing, and they have an internal component that helps too, and that's amazing. I mean, how quiet the bow gets. As soon as you stick one of those on, and that's a big key, because I said I saw too many videos where deer are jumping strings when they shot. And I said, that's not good. So that's about, and I shoot 70 pounds, went up to that game. And it's a solid system. So far, we got the turkey and the bear down this year with it. So it's holding true for where I'm holding aim at.
So real quick you were saying how easy it was to tune the Prime. So John shies away from the prime because of the strings. He's a string builder and he likes them. His brother shoots prime. I shot the primes at ATA, but man, it's not from John. Like from his perspective, I completely understand. And prime does free strings for life if you're the original owner of the bow, which makes total sense because they look like a nightmare to try and build or replace or whatever. But how is it that they're easier to tune, or what's the draw to it? Because for me, I like simplicity, and that quad cam system, even if they're slaved together, just looks like there's so many moving parts to, where something additional could go wrong, right? And you came from a Bowtech double yoke system where it's like the easiest thing to tune, or more flexibility.
Yep, and I could still like my fiance, she still has the Bowtech. I have family friends that still have them. And so when something's up, I know what's going on here. I got to put a twist in this cable, twist in that cable. So it's almost, I think when it comes down to that game, you're talking of tuning wise, it's almost kind of like what the individual is going to deem as too much, because that's just how the bow is designed. I don't think it's too much. You can know what's going on when a cable gets stretched. But with the prime system, I thought the same exact thing for years. I was like, man, there's just a lot going on. Even down to when I got the target bow in there, and I had bought some books of a deal for some aftermarket strings, and I'm going, how in the heck do I change these? And you got that node in there, and you felt like a ding dong for a second, because you realize that the smaller cable that goes on the cam just slides through it. I'm like, oh, there you go. But so that allows everything, they come from the factory. They're all tuned in center, that center tune. It's meant to keep everything right center behind. And I went up there, because they're in Michigan, to check it out, and just curious. And I was crazy, like some of the attention to detail they did to, I don't know what the unit was, but they were measuring like points on the riser to see if it was in the specs of how it was supposed to be. And if it wasn't, even if it was a custom build, they put it aside and start over and correct that one if it was possible to be corrected. Because at some point a machine touched it and you don't know what could have happened. So that kind of blew my mind. But really, that's what that cam system does. It just keeps, there was no messing with a Y cable. And, if you go through, a yoke system, you have to do you have the rough set timing, which they have theirs too. And, but the one thing they don't have is you're not dealing with the rough set cam lean, where you're grabbing the laser to make sure your reference points are hitting the same on both sides. Every bow they say has some sort of cam lean a little bit to it, but because that string and cables are in unison with their system, it eliminates having to focus on that. And I didn't really get it until I picked one up there and messed with it and just got right into it, and saw it. So typically when I get the Bowtech in from the factory, you go through, you check it, because as soon as you put your draw length or tweak it, put your peep sight on, you start altering what was done at the factory. And all I did with this one was, because I'm thinking, oh shoot, how am I going to get my paper tube done? Because if I do a bare shaft, and if it was knock left, knock high, I'm doing a twist here in this yoke cable to get it back in. But with that system, to get your bare shaft tuned, is all you're doing is you just cut back a little bit on your arrow. So I was actually able to cut my arrow back a quarter of an inch. So you save some weight. And it was just one cut, and I was doing bullet holes. And that was out of the target bow. The hunting bow, I didn't do anything with it, and just grabbed it, and it shot a bullet hole bare shaft. So then you just start messing with the fletching, and then you're just messing with your rest or your knock point. And the other thing that I liked, which is a crossover from Bowtech, because they had theirs too, was that flex guard. They call theirs the Flexus Prime. But with those, a lot of folks don't realize is they're meant to get within your fletching of, I'd say quarter inches safely. Some folks might say a little bit closer. If you dabble with it enough, but it's to keep that arrow more center behind. So it's with tuning. So, I adjusted that, which made it simple. So really there's only, outside of your rest, there's only just one tuning adjustment. That was the flex guard. The rest was just arrow and accessories. So it definitely tuned a lot quicker. And, it settles good in the hand. So far I like it. There's some things where when you're looking at cam lean and you might think it might need something, but it hasn't been noted. So we'll see. Like I said, this first time I've kind of crossed out of the Bowtech game and messed with it, but there's so many bows. I think, you say like the main 5 bow brands, I think they've about maxed out on what you can do. There's always some little tweaks that you kind of add, but they're so equal nowadays. It's just kind of, like you said, what feels good in your hand.
I mean, with bows, like I always just defer to John with like, well, how does this work or how does this work? I mean, that was what was cool, like at Total Archery Challenge, like if you saw our story or like what was going on, like he completely broke down that Matthews and we're paper tuning it in the room. And I was just thinking, man, that was going to be a son of a bitch if you had to cut down the arrows to get it to shoot a bullet hole. We didn't have a saw with us, like we had everything else. But that's the thing. And you look at those primes and they shoot good. There's a lot of good qualities, but damn, are they intimidating? And
The one I've shot.
It's that crossover.
I shot my brothers and stuff. The one thing, and this is just my personal preference, it has that super solid back wall, or like the ones I shot did. I don't know if there's other ones that don't have like the limb stop, or if you can take that off or what. But I like.
Yeah, I don't know their history. I don't know if it was recently, like within the last couple of months, or if it's been an option. But I know like both mine, they can go limb stop or cable. So when you have that hard back wall, it's that limb stop.
Right.
Which I haven't switched that on the hunting bow yet. I just had the limb stops on and just worked out in the way and, just haven't enough time to mess with it. But now on the target bow, which is the 9, I had that one a little bit longer. I'm messing with it a little bit. I'm doing like a 2-stage. I use the back tension with that one.
Mm-hmm.
So I set the cable stops up probably about 1/16 of an inch to hit before the limb stops do.
Right.
So when I draw back, I can settle on the cable stops. And then as I'm ready to pull through and my clip goes off, I'm hitting the limb. So it's just kind of, I'm still messing with it and it's taken us some time to just master that aspect. But in theory, it should work really good for just consistency once you master it.
Right.
But with that cable stop, you definitely have more sponge to play with.
Right, and that's what I like about, like my Hoyts and my Bowtech Boss actually had, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but that had, you could go either cable stops or limb stop, and I tried the limb stop, and it just didn't work for my style of shooting. I just don't like that super solid back wall. And when I shot my brother's bow, both his prime and his elite, when I shot his elite, he about yelled at me for ripping the limbs off. He's like, Jesus, I thought you were going to rip the limbs off. Because I've come back, of course he's, shorter draw length than I am, so come back.
Yeah, I think, I honestly think on the hunting bow, I'm going to end up with the cables on it. Exactly for that, because sometimes you just pull back too fast. And it's like, blam.
Yeah, boom.
And, but look at some of these, you'll read some of these forums and stuff. A lot of guys are saying, go to the cable.
Well, this has been all great stuff, and I think we definitely need to do this again, probably. maybe once we get some Vanguards in our hands and we can kind of talk to you about this, that, and the other thing. But it sounds like we could do a whole tuning podcast between you and John, and I could just sit here and I could mediate the thing and ask why this and why that. Because, that's obviously where this podcast came from, is me asking John questions and him answering very long form. And I'm going, well, holy shit, this would probably work pretty well. But, for our listeners and everybody else, where can they follow along with what you've got going on, and what do you have coming up with the Shoot for Life, and maybe a little bit of backstory on that?
So if it's my personal stuff, what I'm working on, it's the social side right now until the website gets done. But it's just Tom Spisz Archery on Instagram, or you have me on Facebook. I have a page I've been slacking on, but I do have the official page, but I have my personal one as well. If it's Vanguard, it's just Vanguard Outdoors that you want to check up on. And then the Shoot for Life, we have our platforms, the website, social, and with that, we have an event coming up in September. I believe it's September 14th. But it's the archery driven focus. So it's, like you said, you're up at Total Archery Challenge. You're up there. It's for fun. We're shooting, you're shooting arrows up there. You have the only internal competitive with your buddies. And that's the whole mindset. We get some good sponsors and, door prizes, silent auction stuff. And you just come there and shoot. Usually it's anywhere from $15 to $20. And there's, we're at we have 7 directors. No one gets paid for it, and that money that's raised from the admission to any kind of door prizes or novelty shoots, it all goes to the cause. So that's one thing I wanted to make sure, is that it was very fun and cause specific. And so as a general thing with Shoot for Life, is it's not bound to one cause. It supports to eradicate life-altering illnesses. And when we sat down, we said, how do you pick or choose, man? There's, if it's been existing, I get it. But when you're starting new, when we did, how do you choose what illness you want to support more? I said, well, let's just make it so we can do it all. If that event came up where we can, if you called me up and said, hey, I want to do that at my local club, this is what I want to do for it. Okay, go for it. So with that, we chose a specific cause. So this one September, it goes to C.S. Mott Children's Hospital, but it's not to the general fund. We specifically chose, it's called the Family Hope Fund. And that is for, if families who have a child that's there, and it may be food or lodging or travel to get there. Because Mott's is so much above and beyond to, give life or help life. And families, they're taking care of their child, but they can't get there to be there with family. So that fund specifically helps them. And that was one thing that we wanted. Any event that we do, you'll know exactly where your money's going. And that's, I wanted to make sure of that, because you hear so many times that people are like, I just donate to this. I don't know where my money goes, but it's just going somewhere. And we didn't want that to happen. So outside of having fun, possibly getting some stuff, at the end of the day, any kind of money that you spent there, where it's going to go, which is always good.
Awesome.
Yeah, man, that's great. And if there's anything that we can do to help, and when you've got your event coming up here, you said there's going to be one in September. Let us know, and we'll definitely, promote as much as we can. I know you're on the other side of the state, but and it sounds like you're doing it right in the middle of elk season, so there might be some of our listeners that are like, "Come on, man, what's going on?"
Yeah,
but,
yeah, it's so hard to find a good time. We bounced all over, so but yeah, and like I said, life always gets roadblocks, but you keep going forward. And I know at this time we wanted to be more broad and in different areas, but it doesn't happen yet. But it will. We're working on packages to where, like at your local club, if you guys wanted to do one, brought by Bowhunter Chronicles, it'll be possible at some point. Because a lot of times people, that's what started it, really. I wanted to do an archery shoot for another organization, but based on their rules, I couldn't. And which was kind of weird because you wanted to help out for a good cause and they're telling you no. And so that's what I want to be able to make it to where we just hooked someone up with a packet and said, here you go. And, but there's just some minor little details that we're working out. So hopefully that'll come out next year.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be, we could definitely do it at our club.
Yeah. We got a pretty nice course and.
Yeah, we have all the 3D. I mean, we get the volunteers and set up the 3D course and got a lot of, it's a big area. So.
Right. Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, just keep us posted and, any way that we can help out with that. And thanks so much for, coming on and talking for Vanguard because Bear Grylls over here and budget subscription box guy over here, we don't know shit about optics. And I would say that we're not in the minority.
Right.
I would say the general public looks at a pair of $100 binoculars and says, these are probably going to be good enough. And then you see a $500 pair of binoculars and you say, man, why would you need those? And then you say, look at those $10,000 binoculars. Like, why would you ever buy those? So I think all that information is great. So
yeah, that's good. I'm always happy to help out.
Awesome, man. Well, like I said, we'll have to do this again and look forward to seeing you up at the BHA Rendezvous in August.
Yeah, we'll see you there. Thanks for having me, and we'll chat again soon.
Awesome. Thanks.
Shut up and sit down.